But yeah, we are a team that bit more of a fan of the whole global thing. So yeah, that's you have a point.
So, as far as how the different matchups played out, as far as like each individual one, one thing that was very common in the drafting scene was the first pick of Alchemist and prioritizing him as a carry throughout most teams' drafts. But you guys took him on, I think, a couple times and really didn't have too many issues with it. Do you think it's a hero that you just have to put pressure on in order to make sure it's working well against you, or?
I think people have been watching too much Asian Dota. Alchemist is a good hero, but running him as the carry is still a risk. Like our Trilane failed. We didn't get what we wanted in the last game, but still delaying his farm enough, making him not skill the Greevil Street early on, pretty much negates the whole point of having him as the main carry. Because if you don't get that, he is still gonna be like somewhat of an inferior carry if he doesn't get that much gold on you and get the early levels in the Chemical Rage. So yeah, I do think that people overrate him, especially as a Trilane farmer. But yeah, just that's my take on the hero, and generally our take on the hero, I think.
Sure, sure. So one thing that was very, very interesting is your first game against Virtus Pro, going up against the OD and also towards the mid game, the Silencer. How do you like? I'm not sure if it was just Fly specifically on the drafting process or if you were all collaborating, but it really seemed like it was a difficult decision as far as where you were going to lane, how you're going to lane it to make sure that OD wasn't a pressure. You ended up picking Tinker, which worked out amazingly well once you got the BOTs, of course. But what prompted you guys to make that decision to run the CK-Wisp mid and still pick up a Tinker for something else?
Well, I guess you haven't followed the most of our games. Like the amount of success we had with the CK-Wisp middle is quite vast. I know that the people who follow. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm using fancy words here. Don't laugh at me. Vast. No, but we love running the CK Wisp in that mid lane. Like I think we run it 80% of, no, more than 80%. We run it 95% of the time there.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just another one of those games. I think we only lost with it twice, having the CK Wisp combo. So it's a ballsy move to go up against it, and yeah, well. That game turned out like most of our CK Wisp games. It's such a high risk to go up against.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and it seemed like the OD really wasn't ready for those 2 second stuns. Like your first two stuns were on Chaos Bolt were 2 second stuns, and that really made a big factor where you were able to pursue and get your bottle early to keep the mana flowing, keep the spells coming on out. So that was really, really good for you guys. I guess I just haven't seen it as much since the mid pull was nerfed to be extremely difficult, and you have to be very precise in your timing for pulling the easy camp there. Do you obviously that shifted it away where it isn't as viable. Along with that 6.78, the change of the Wisp Spirits not providing vision, do you think those two nerfs made it too difficult for the average player, or do you think you guys are just really, really good at it?
I do think that most teams don't play it right. I just noticed the Skype picture that. Yeah, I forgot that I had that picture.
Yeah.
Either way, like I don't think that most people use Wisp right. I do think that people are starting to pick up on it. Like teams are starting to pick up on it. But the whole mid thing, like you would see a lot more Wisp from us if we'd get it, but we just simply don't get it. Because yeah, we value the hero very high. I don't think that's a secret, and it's a very high value hero in Europe, especially. So I do think if it got more play, that people would start playing it more. But if a team doesn't know how to like see all the options with the hero, they're not gonna start going into this weird stuff that they're not used to.
Definitely.
Like the pulling mid.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of a limiting factor. I mean, there's so many different heroes that can be limited by it if it's done very, very well. But in the more casual scene, obviously most viewers are probably playing around a mid-level average bracket. So would you say that is a way to counter OD in a casual, like a pub setting, or does it require a lot more coordination on a professional level?
I think pulling mid is one of the hardest things in the game. Yeah, it's so many things that can go wrong. One tree that's not cut, and if the wrong creep is standing at the wrong place and starts blocking, there's a lot of things. Like the mid pull is already hard as it is, and then there's so many small factors that make it even harder. But it's something you just got practice. I get it about 80%. I get at least a few creeps, and maybe 50%, I'm able to get four creeps. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. But having Wisp cut, being able to cut down all the trees, just makes it so easy.
Definitely. So with that, obviously you guys like to have a very aggressive mindset when you guys have your heroes at their best, like when you're kind of hitting your peaks on different individuals. What stage of the game do you think is your favorite in general as a player? And obviously support, you're going to be most relevant early on, but as a team, I mean, generally speaking, are you wanting to try to take people on 10 to 20 minutes into the game, 20 to 30? What would you say is your playstyle as far as aggression timing?
Well, it's a good question. I do think usually our peaks are when the mid excels at the 10-12 minute mark, especially when we run a lot of Nyx, and he also has a peaking point around that, where you just need to start. You need the early levels, need the early items, and then when you're ahead, you should keep using your advantage to get even more of an advantage. That's something that every caster loves to say, but you can do that by like getting those mobility heroes like Nyx scales well with other mobility heroes such as Puck or Quap, who then peaks at, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, and then they can run around together, shared mobility, just run people down. If it works, you can get a huge advantage. If it doesn't, you might fall more behind. But yeah, I'm guessing most of our games we go at around 15 minutes.
Sure, okay.
Depending on what strat we run, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that different players on your team have different strengths at different levels? Like, would you say that, for example, Era is, since he generally plays carries, has a better mindset when it goes into the late game stages, or do you think you kind of each and every one of you kind of spread it out so that you have a clear head and the right mentality going into each and every stage of the game?
It's something you got to work on as a team. I feel if you transition into mid game against a very experienced team, as a very new team, what you often see is just pickoffs happening all the time. That's what good teams will go for. It's the easy pickoffs if they're split. But a really good team will usually start clustering at one point, or know how to play to the limit where you can't get picked off. So that's something you gotta go into in the mid game, like the mentality to start clustering and not getting picked off.
Sure.
Because that's something that happens like very often as a new team, at least new in Dota.
Yeah. Definitely. On another note, just kind of referencing back to your games a little bit, one thing, sometimes you guys really, really seem great at rotating and responding to situations with TPs, and sometimes it just isn't coming through. Specifically that last game, Hani didn't seem to contribute anything to the other lanes until he had BOTs, and then suddenly he was all over the place just taking names, but there was that time frame the first 10 minutes. Do you think that it's something that should be changed, where you should... Because there are a lot of tower dives, this is why I'm saying it. Like Alchemist, Leshrac, they were all like your tier 2s for crying out loud. But
we called for him to bring it to get a TP to himself. I'm talking about Kai. But yeah, he was like, no, I almost have BOT. But it was okay. Like we all talked about it before the game that he should probably go BOT this game, but not having the presence early on. Actually ended up getting a second kill on DK because he didn't rotate bottom. He said that we pinged on the Lesh when he was diving. Or was it the Alk? I can't remember. But he decided to stay mid and actually got a second kill on the DK. And I guess that was just a gut feeling he went with, and it paid off. So I mean that's a bigger kill than getting the support that Doe. And it did lead him into having a really good game on the co-op. So he felt like it was the best, and that game it might have been the best. So it's hard to say now. But yeah, maybe having the early TP in most games will be able to secure that if they dive, you can punish it. But yeah, we picked the co-op for the 1-on-1 DK match. He stayed there. Owned the DK.
Destroyed it. He just took 2 points of Shadow Strike, and he got like 2 solo kills at really key stages. So I honestly think, he completely tore up the mid lane, and there's no way you can critique him about that. I was just thinking about the transitions when you guys were being tower dived a lot. How did that aggressive Trilane, obviously it wasn't exactly how you wanted it to go, but just thinking of that combination of heroes, what was your mindset going into that 3v3 matchup?
We would have blown up the Alchemist at one point, but the Lesh got a double stun on me and Rubik, and I was in poor position. If I would have been in the right position, gotten to blow up the Alchemist, gotten the first blood, would have also won the warding war in the forest, kept control of it, and Alchemist wouldn't have had anything. Like if we would have won that lane, I think the game would have been a very one-sided game. But we did some misplays, and VP, like, I don't know who played the Lesh, but he had some really great stuns that game, especially on the lane. So that just resulted in our Trilane like spiraling out of control.
Absolutely. Now, one decision you guys made early on was with your first observer ward, placing it so that you had vision of the pools but didn't necessarily block it. Was that a mistake or a specific decision at that stage to try to control the neutrals?
That was a mistake as well from my part. Okay. I know that there's a ward that blocks it, just inches from where I placed it, and that's very rarely dewarded if you're not used to it. I could have planted another one. I'm usually blocking camps, but we had a very weak Trilane without the creep wave. Our Trilane gets stronger with the creep wave since we had the Dazzle, so we couldn't walk into the forest without risking dying. So yeah, we didn't have much time. I just took the ward I thought would work, but misplaced it. They got pulled, but we actually negated it by stopping the pulling up to the other medium camp twice, and then got the block off for a while. But yeah, the Trilane would have been a lot different if I would have been further to the right when we got the lift on the Alchemist that first time.
Sure. Well, cool to get your insight on that matchup there. Now, if you still have a little bit more time, I'd like to ask you a couple questions about how the bootcamp has been going, and have you felt that your team has been changing their style up or improving in coordination as a result of that?
Sure. I can answer a few, but I'm going to grab some food after,
sure.
Let's say, 3 questions. But yeah, I mean, since we started, it was first we tried some very radical stuff, then we just started doing some very random stuff. And now we're slowly getting back to more stable, I feel. I mean, still a lot of days up until international. Like, you still have so much to test. And right now, we're just using what we know works, at least for these officials. But I think we're slowly getting back on track.
Cool. So you guys kind of had a peak a few months back, and that was kind of the Rat Dota emphasis there, where you were making big comebacks and you were doing all this crazy split push play, and some of it isn't as effective in this current meta compared to what it used to be. What do you think it will take to get you guys back to that position, that status, where you guys just, if you get it to a game where you can spread out a bit and you can take it to late, that there's really no way to shut you down? What do you think it's going to take for you guys to kind of get to that status as a team again?
Well, what happened last time is that you just play every day continuously, and then you don't stop. Like, if you take the break, it messes you up, and if you keep on practicing, it just keeps you warm, keeps you in the game, and that, I guess, that's what it's going to take for us to get back to that, because that's why we fell down from our peak. That was the whole Italy thing, and someone going to America, someone doing this, someone doing that, and never actually having the 5 together.
So the end result is screw stand-ins, go 5-man. That's pretty much how it works out.
Stand-ins are great. It's lovely when you have a stand-in that helps you out, but it's never what you want for the team, especially not for a longer duration.
Sure enough. And yeah, I can understand with Fly having to be filled in for multiple times and Hani having a couple times himself. Yeah, I definitely see how that can add up, and that was definitely around the time period that you guys started having a little bit of trouble there. Now, looking at some teams, obviously we saw a lot of really cool games come out of the Alienware Cup and stuff like that. So, looking at the teams, Na'Vi, IG, LGD, Alliance, all these really, really high-tier, sometimes unbeatable teams. I'm not worrying about individual strategies, since that's in place for when you want to actually pull it out in a game, but in general, what do you think it's going to take to actually be able to compete with them and take them down?
Well, it's hard going up against a team like Na'Vi, I feel. Way harder than what I saw from the Alienware Cup there. The Na'Vi drafts are quite, like you might expect something, and then you might get it, or you might expect something and it might be completely different. You never know with it. You can't go into a game like thinking that this is what they're gonna do 100%. You can think that this is what they're gonna do 50%, and that's not reliable. So that's why I think Na'Vi is like. I think that's why Na'Vi won, but also think that's why Na'Vi is the hardest contender there. They're very unpredictable, and like you might be able to predict the game correctly. Some games they will just do what you think, but some games they won't do anything what you think. And but yeah, I wasn't really that impressed with the Asian drafts.
Just predictable, or what?
Yeah, pretty much you saw the heroes and you knew it was gonna go one or two places.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Navi, you just couldn't tell for sure.
Sure. Okay, well, that's definitely a mindset to look into and kind of see the dynamic aspect of the West has always been rather strong. As far as the Eastern play, like the methodology, they're just how consistent they are. Is that something that you still need to practice really hard to compete with, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes just with experience.
Sure.
But it is like again something you should. The more if you spend 3 months in a row doing it, you're gonna get a lot more out of it than if you spend 3 months spread doing it. I think the consistency is quite important.
Gotcha. All right, well, last question, and then I'll let you do shoutouts and go grab some food.
Sure, thanks.
TI3 Grand Finals, the final game of the final match. Meepo or no Meepo?
Ooh, I would love to see Meepo. I think I'm just gonna kick him off the chair and pick him myself.
There you go. Awesome. Well, yeah, any shoutouts you want to give real quick? Any sponsors type shoutouts before you want to go?
Yeah, shout out to MSI, ISO, Fnatic, yeah, Rat Dota, the rest, Gambuga Gaming, Meepo. Shout out to everyone right there.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview, man. Been a while since I got to talk to you in person, but always a pleasure. So,
yep.
Good games, well played, and good luck next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you, man.